talking about the NFC West and all the options for the division on the betting menu. Let's start with the defending division and conference champion, the San Francisco 49ers, over under of 10.5. And it's a little bit of a price tag on the yes-no to make the playoffs, minus 325. Preston, I'm on the yes. It's one of my favorite bets in all the NFL because I just think this team is so good. We saw a taste of it in the postseason when they ran through the NFC, just dominated. They didn't even have to throw a ball in the second half of some of these games because that defense, when healthy, is so potent. And yes, they were banged up a little bit last year during the middle of the season, but I think at full strength, they're great. And whatever complications come from COVID and the limited offseason, I just trust the brain trust of the coaching staff and management to get it done. So 76%, that's what minus 325 translates to. I still think it's a great play.
You throw in the fact that there is that extra playoff team. I know you've reminded us of that. And some of these elite teams in the NFC or the AFC, whichever it may be, their prices might be a little low or short because of that. And I'm with you. I know the narrative generally from a team that loses in the Super Bowl is they struggle to find their way back. Look, that's in recent years. It doesn't mean the Niners can't. And honestly, you look at this team, Jimmy G, in his second year under Shanahan's system, off the ACL injury with more weapons and a defense that was historically elite, by the way, when their starting unit was on the field. You mentioned the injuries. I just don't see this team falling off. So I'm with you. If I had to bet it, I think it is a little bit short. They're probably a team that gets in 80+%. And also a Shanahan system that even if Jimmy G were to suffer an injury and miss a few games here or there, you're not really worried just because the defense is so good.
Joe, you like that as well. You like the over, but you also got your eye on Jimmy G's passing yards prop.
Absolutely. We need 3,800 passing yards from Garoppolo in order for the over to cash, and I'm very confident that's going to happen. It's 178 fewer yards than he threw for last year, and Preston mentioned it. He was coming off the ACL injury. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did off that injury in his first full season as a starter in the NFL, which was also his first full season in Kyle Shanahan's system. You throw in the fact that this is a very favorable schedule. They're only going to face one opponent coming off a bye. The Thursday night game against Green Bay is a horrible travel spot for the Packers. I like Garoppolo going over. I like Deebo Samuel to have a huge season as well at wide receiver. He only needs 900 receiving yards. He's now the number one weapon on that offense outside of Kittle.
Now to another NFC West team that made the postseason last year, the Seattle Seahawks. 11 wins last year. Remarkable in close games. This year, the win total's 9.5 in the playoffs, a little bit juiced at minus 125. Joe, I'm torn here because I think there's going to be some regression here, but I also think there's going to be regression with the Rams as well. So it's right there. Where do you sit with this win total of 9.5?
Under 9.5. It's tough to bet against a guy like Russell Wilson, who's done so much with his career, especially over the last few years as Seattle has shifted to being more offensive-minded than defensive-minded. But Wilson means everything to this team. He's more valuable to this team than probably any other player in the NFL is to their team. 11-5 last year, but don't get caught up on that. They were +7 in scoring differential, which is more indicative of an 8-18. And they were 10-2 in one-score games during the regular season. That's not going to be sustainable. Jadeveon Clowney probably isn't back, so that's a blow to the pass rush. Wilson's now 31 years of age. Not saying that's old, but I'm going with the under here, Doug.
All right, interesting there. Preston, what about you?
I don't know, man. Like he just mentioned it, all the regression stats, but I was sitting here last year in the last offseason saying the same things because they did the same thing in 2018 and Russell Wilson just kept pulling rabbits out of his hat. He does it again this past season. The numbers say, I think they're a 9-7 team more frequently than any other result. 8-8 more frequently than 10-6 or better. Like it says under. The numbers say under. I would bet under, but I haven't personally done it yet. I'll probably find a way later this summer, though.
Now let's check in on a team that did suffer a Super Bowl hangover last year. The Rams missed the playoffs. This year's win total, 8.5, with the no in terms of the postseason favorite, minus $170. It's a new era, Joe, in LA, not just talking about no Todd Gurley. New uniforms as well for the Rams. Where do you sit with this?
I like the coach and I like the system, but I don't like the over here at all. I don't see them getting to 9 wins given a variety of factors we're about to dive into. So I'd go under the 8.5 here, Doug. Let's look at the schedule. Just right out of the gate, they're going to host the Cowboys in week 1, and then 4 of their next 5 games are going to take place on the road. That's a tough run. And if you stumble early in the season, that can have a ripple effect that stays with you throughout the course of the year. These guys are going to struggle. I don't see them getting to 9 wins.
Yeah, I'm right split on the middle, but I do have a little bit of a lean on Jared Goff's passing yards. Kind of a wonky number, 4,182.5. Now, he had 4,600 and change last year, but he also had 6 really bad games. So he's capable of stinking it up, especially in cold weather and especially on the road, as we've seen. I counted about 9 opponents he could struggle with this year. And I know that everyone raves about McVay, but I'm just not sold that Goff and this guy can light it up. I mean, he was among the leaders in passing yards last year, Joe.
He's hit 4,600 passing yards each of the last 2 seasons, but you hit the nail on the head with an interesting comment. He's not really good on the road or in cold weather. There's a lot of that in the NFL. There are a lot of road games, and there are some cold weather games as well. It's a big number here. I'd be leaning with you on that one.
Let's now wrap things up with a team that finished in last place a year ago in the division. 7.5 wins for the Arizona Cardinals. The yes plus 245 to make the playoffs. Obviously, the big news is acquiring DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. Preston, where do you sit with these numbers?
I really like the Cardinals under 7.5 of any bet or future in this division. This is the one that stands out the most. I think it's really interesting that the market currently perceives the Rams and the Cardinals to be fairly close. The Cardinals are 6-1 to win the division. The Rams are 5-1. I get that the Rams are going to be worse on paper, but I just think it's a little bit overblown from a market perspective. And I trust Sean McVay, even with a worse team and what he's done the last 2 years, than Cliff Kingsbury in year 2, with an offense that, should be better, but a defense that was bottom 3rd in the NFL, special teams ranked bottom 3rd in DVOA special teams. And when it's all said and done, and you're looking at this Cardinals team in a division where they're projected to be the 4th best team in the division of 4, and they have to be 500 or better for this to go over. Seattle's above average. So San Francisco's elite. I just don't see the 4th team of 4 teams to get 8+ wins very often. I have this projected 7 more often than not, and 6 more often than 8+. So for me, this is an easy under. And real quick, to add to all of this, the back half of their schedule, no bye week, and I project them to be dogs in 7 of their final 8. And the one game they're a favorite, small favorite at home to the Rams, which is a game that could really go either way anyways. This just screams under. I got to go with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking along the same lines. I like the no to make the playoffs. Yes, it's kind of aggressive at minus 290, but it's a team that won 5 games last year. You mentioned the competitive division, Preston. I just felt like they were outclassed in a lot of games. I know that's an eye test term, but it's nothing at the tail end of the season that said, oh, they're a bet on team that into next year. I mean, they had that 5-game skid. I do think they have a nice home field advantage they have throughout the years. And I expect Kingsbury and Murray to be a little bit more adjusted to the NFL, but not enough for this team to go to the postseason. Joe, you have your eye on a quarterback prop here with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, if Murray gets to 3,900 yards, it's an over, which is a play I like. This defense stinks, and in a big way too, man. Vance Joseph is a defensive coordinator. Someone should go through this track record and ask yourself, what makes you believe these guys will be any better this year? When Joseph was the defensive coordinator in Miami, he was there 1 season. He took a team that went 25th in total defense, and he turned them into the 29th total defense. He then somehow got the head coaching job in Denver, where he promptly took a team that ranked 4th in scoring defense and plummeted them all the way down to 22nd. Then he ends up as the coordinator in Arizona, where he takes a team that ranked 20th in total defense and turns them into dead last in the NFL 1 year on the job. Everywhere he's been as a defensive mind, he's taken the defense and he's made them worse instantly. I don't know how they could be any worse than last year, but I don't see them being good enough this season to lock down the opposition. That means Murray's going to be throwing the ball early. That means Murray's going to be throwing the ball often. He was just 178 yards short of this mark last year. Now he's got DeAndre Hopkins, and it's his 2nd year in the system. I like him to go over here, Doug.
All right, so the common thread is we're not expecting big things from the Cardinals this season.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.